Morning. I'd just like a brief because this was meant for a high-level technology group with decision makers, but it's obvious that I have the future of the country too. So can I have a quick show of hands? How many of you here are faculty and decision makers? Faculty, please. Okay, very few. Faculty, one or two there. Now, this session was actually meant to re-engineer everything. How many are from the engineering groups? Engineering group. All right. How many are final years engineering? Non-engineering? All right. Very nice. How many of you are in the final year non-engineering? Okay. All right. Thank you for that information. Let me take you through the session. Today's was supposed to be on. Today the session. Is coming through. Today the session was to be on AI, digital skilling and sustainability. I'm going to take these three bits together and you can have an interactive session if you please, but I'll definitely try to keep the last few minutes for you and your questions. All right? Now, if I were to change this piece, I'm retaking the AI as well as digital technology and bottling it for sustainability purpose for the future of work. So the National Association of Software and Service Companies basically has about 5,275 companies as its members, out of which the India per se ecosystem is 17,000 companies. But this 5,227 companies is 92% of the revenue, contributing to 9.45% to the GDP. And this human resource is almost 90% of IT and IT-enabled services. Now, all of you who have done these programs and you're aspiring for jobs, it's very important for you to know what is going to be the future of work and whether you will be employable or not, even if you have graduated with top honors in your program. Faculty, it's very important for you to know what we are restructuring in industry. Every one of the industrial revolutions had 100 years time to reset. How much do you think is the reset time now? Anybody, any guess? I'll just give you 30 seconds. What is the reset time when we are taking on now, whenever you have technologies in play? 6 months. So by the time you graduate, I have actually changed my job role. So you need to follow. It's not your fault. That's the reason why I wanted faculty and educationists to say how fast the industry is changing. Now, where you actually look at retail, you look at how you are purchasing stuff, everything has changed. Banking systems are changing. Healthcare is changing. How will an old educational outcome actually retrofit to the new requirements? So I'm going to actually also look at what is the need for this change, what will be the approach for the change, and how am I going to redesign the curricula and the educational outcomes. All right? It's very important for you to actually understand this. I'm having a problem with, right. But is India in trouble? The question is coming up. India is not in trouble because we have educators, governance factors, people who are ministers, positioned at different roles of responsibility who have said, what will India be? This industry body is today about $450 billion, all of us put together. But we have a human resource of almost 500 million and about 12 million people who are indirectly employed. And the numbers are growing, but they require different skill sets. So by 2026, we will be able to become $1 trillion economy in the country, but this is the fastest growing economy in the world. It's one of the larger economies that is really very, very fast. By about 2028, we will be $5.4 trillion. By about 2036, we predict $10.1 trillion. By 2045, it'll be $20-30 trillion. And by 2048, 47, we will be 26 trillion. And at that time, every Indian will have a minimum of $15,000 as a part of their income. compared to what we are today. So look at the audacious plan. And if you have to be a part of this, there is one thing that you must remember. By 2045, AI will become a singularity. What do you mean by singularity? AI will have developed consciousness. The difference between you and a machine is your ability to have consciousness. So what I'm going to take you through today is to say what are the various levels of AI, what is the level of structured and unstructured data that will come to you, and how important it is for problem solving. And if the machine can itself problem solve, what is your role? So then you're going to find that it's very, very critical for me to be able to say what is the cross function. AI is one of the technologies, but you will find that AI is now going to cut across agriculture, manufacturing, retail, wholesale trade, transportation, government, education. Even if I look at gem and jewelry, your jhumkas, if I look at your Kanjivaram saris, I have CAD-CAM processes. I have got 3D printing processes. Little small workers who have no education are actually bringing. One of the biggest things is the automation. Automation has taken a huge big chunk of the blue-collar workers. AI will take your jobs. So unless you upskill yourself and constantly do so, there is no relevance to the educational. So that's the reason why we are all working together to say, how will you be constantly relevant? So I would basically say, what have we done as industry? We are reimagining our businesses. The way you studied for the last 70 years worked very well and got you jobs. And if you finished your program in about, say, 21 years of learning, it sustained you for the next 30 years. No more is that. You need to upskill every 6 months for you to be relevant. Otherwise, they replace you with a machine. This is really happening. So what is actually we are doing is, we are saying, how relevant are we as businesses? 40% of all our businesses will shut down in the next 10 years. Because we need to automate, we need to digitize. There is a difference between the two. Automation means regular work. Most of the students who are actually doing repetitive administrative work, we don't require that. Everything will get automated. Before I used to have, now we have what is called a DevOps engineer. I have somebody who used to code, and somebody then used to actually test the code, and somebody who would be a product who sells it. Now all three are one. So similarly, we are combining and making it more efficient. So by 2026-30, we are giving ourselves this timeline. You will find that in India, 54% of the work that we do will have some changes of technology input. About 37% would have rephrased itself to basically have new emerging tech in a mix. And about 9% of a 600 million workforce population, which is about 9.6, how much you can actually calculate, is about 1.4 million jobs. We are not even imagining what it's going to be. This is where your future is going to lie. So it's very important that faculty know how to revamp the existing program of learning. And students, you need to not fuss around and say, oh, I cannot learn. Every day I learn courses. If I'm not relevant to myself, I have no job. So literally everyone is looking. So if I have a government, I want to push whole government for efficiency on blockchain. I will have all the processes coming together and connecting. So if all the computers in the world with all the information comes together, by 2045, we impact that is called a singularity, where all the machines, everything is together. The machine itself becomes conscious. So let me take you through the slides. Next slide. So what has NASSCOM planned? How are we going to become this $1 trillion program? So we said there are 3 pillars. One, I need hardware. So this is for faculty, for people who are like principals and say, it's very nice to say there is a program. You all have to learn. How is it going to learn? Can I teach the teachers and the teachers then teach the students? It's going to take too much time. I need a direct intervention to the student, but faculty will be facilitators as well as mentors. So I need the hardware, bandwidth, connectivity, 24/7 access for you to have as students to laptops or smartphones, any device that can give you the knowledge and the application ability. Economic values, digitization, everything is being digitized. I'll give you more depth. Technology, product and services. You look at my companies in the yellow and black boxes. By about 2025, that is next year, 55 to 60% of my companies are going digital. So unless you are there, we don't have a place for you. So it's very important that we do it, and don't run after jobs just because you hear that is very interesting. If you run after blockchain, I need a small 1%. But I found that services and BPM in India still is the largest revenue earner. Engineering and R&D has a smaller amount, and products is even smaller. But these will serve to large companies as, what will you say? These will serve for large companies as merger and acquisitions. Large companies are not reinventing themselves. It's very difficult for the bellwether companies to do so. So all of them are actually acquiring. So SMEs are very, very important. So can you actually become an SME? Can you launch an enterprise? So we are looking for job creators, and that's the reason why faculty am looking for revamping your educational assessment, not on lower order thinking skills of knowledge, but on higher order thinking of redesigning, evaluating, critically understanding, project management, entrepreneurship, which we will venture cap. So globally, we have seen these are the major technology or key drivers for job change. One is green transition. Everybody wants to move towards a green transition. Technology, the yellow, green one says it increases jobs, but technology is also cutting down the jobs. Because if you are not technically qualified and continuously so, we don't have a place. Economic outlook, of course, we want to be very efficient, so we cut down human resource because they have actually less efficiency in the long run. So you're going to find that this innovation stage where AI and other technologies are coming to play, 60% of the job losses will be in the higher education space. Previous innovations actually brought job losses in the middle skilled area. So that means what is the future is something that you must look. So let me give you a glimpse of what the future of work will be. Am I imagining the Googles and the TCS and the Wipros and the Infosys and the IBMs to actually provide you jobs? They're all innovating and revamping themselves, right? What you will find is when you go to Amazon and you want a product, what do you find? You have a 5-star rating? Yes or no? Yes? You go look at the cheapest price and you look at the highest 5-star rating and you buy the product. Yes or no? So if you have an education and you have a skills certificate, that skills certificate is mapped internationally, you will put yourself and say, I'm a data science. I am a, prompt engineer. I'm a web specialist. Then globally, you are hired. You can sit here in India and work internationally. You get paid in foreign direct investments, right? Because people don't want us in their own country. So when you do this sort of work, what happens is the job is not going to come 5 years, 6 years, 6 months, 9 months, 4 months. Once that's done, you get a rating certificate. Your information out there in the market say you are a 5-star rate, 4-star rate. This is your job offering. That means you can actually run your own enterprise or company. You work for multiple companies, and you can also basically be available for small scale consultancies. This is the future of work. Which means just having a degree is not enough, my friends. Every one of us needs to upskill on ourselves. So let me tell you what that scenario is going to be. These are key emerging technologies. When we actually pitched this idea in the G20, where India had its presidency and said, India, as Professor has said, Balkishte has said, that India will actually become the talent hub of the world. So we are looking for a floating digital workforce to be made available to serve the rest of the world in areas of sensor vision technology, genomic editing, autonomous driving, smart robots. Now, these are not courses which are on a full degree. Your BSc, BCom, BBA, your engineering, civil, chemical, every one of the engineering streams needs to have a smattering of all this information. So these are the technical skills, AI, blockchain, big data analytics. And if you keep coming down, the latest flavor is quantum computing, nanosensors, 5G, 6G, genomics and neural networks, and the list goes on. But on the right side, something very important. Faculty, principals, deans, you need to note. We want you to award at least 30 to 40% weightage to the socio-emotional skills. That is problem solving, Design thing, previously you called it soft skills. It's not so. It's very critical. Continuous learning, project management, negotiating, influencing, collaboration, digital leadership, communication, and storytelling. I'm telling you a story right now. Now, this is what makes you a saleable commodity. So if you don't, so the teaching methodology, faculty members, principals, etc., needs to include all of these socio-molecular stress. So I'm saying the approach to teaching must be very, very different. So if you look at this now, again, look at the core tech and digital. Many of you are in the core space. Look at IT, ITS per se. If you look at the dark blue color, digital talent is what I'm looking at. Many of you have got a certificate on digital talent. That will change in about 8 to 9 months. So you need to get the upgrade on it. But look how technology is impacting BFSI, telecommunication, electronics, manufacturing, automotive. That means jobs are available in all of this. These are applications. So what stops me from having a civil engineer have basically an elective on Halo roads, have an elective basically on automotive, material science, because the way automotive technology will be is that I have a data annotator, I have an autonomous vehicle, and before there were about 35,000 parts to a car, and now it's about 35 parts to a car. So the whole concept of mechanical engineering has changed. But I need the civil engineer to know that the rotational energy can be converted into frictional energy, frictional from heat, light, sun. All of these can go into your battery of your car, which powers it. That means I need new types of roads. If you have a construction for the civil engineer, they are all filled with nanosensors. So therefore, there is a sixth sense to the building. I have got a virus that I can fit into the building that self-repairs itself. Where are you learning all this? Where is your coding that you are going to be doing? So in every area that I have, I need to have. Now, all of these, banking, financial services, is in healthcare. Is it in the fintech space? It is in the construction space. It's going to be in basically your material that you dress that you wear. I have with nanosensors. I can change the color of the cloth as I wish, right? You have seen that you have eco-friendly air conditioners. I can have 6 cents and 7 cents rooms. I have a 3D printed room or a home which changes rooms as I want. Morning it's a hall, evening it's a bedroom, night it's something else. So the list goes on. So I'm just giving you a facet of what. So now the new area that you will have to learn, that's why I need you have the socioeconomic, is you have to work with humanoids. People, we are already doing it. That is a machine-human interaction. You will not have your colleagues as just humans like yourself. You have them as machines. So how will you work with the machine? You will see as you move from 22 to 27, just around the 5 years, the machine is now moving up. The light blue color is 43%, and human is 57. In the next 5 years, it's going to flip around. So how do you work? What is your economic and your psychological behaviors that you're going to actually work with a machine that is thinking better than you, making decisions faster than you, is able to understand and absorb information much more than you? So these are problems we have not solved, but this is what I want to talk to faculty about and say how we restructure curriculum to be relevant to the future of work. So let me give you a quick review of the impact of AI on the new age technologies. So you have learned somebody has AI and you have a digital analyst, but that is just the touch, the part. Under that, I have machine learning where you can actually train the machine to learn. I have deep learning where structured and unstructured data can actually go in and it makes decisions. It gives you a plethora of decisions and choose from it. Here I take you to what is called agentic AI. Agentic AI basically also says, out of these 10 decisions that I've given you, number 5 is the best. And then you will react with the machine. And then the machine says, okay, I can adapt. It self-learns. That means you don't even have to train the models. Then I have quantum AI. The thing is, if I have 1 trillion years of data, it can be formed and cured by quantum computing in just a few seconds. That means every one of your cybersecurity data, your banking accounts, your defense accounts, everything we can hack into. Therefore, many companies have halted it because a combination of AI, agentic AI and quantum is disaster for human. So we are holding. But I need you to find a solution. You don't have to get solutions from abroad. You can find the solution here. So R&D in all of these technologies is very critical because we need to say, how does the humanity and the human race survive in the future of work? Having said this, let me give you a few, because many of the people are embracing AI. So if I have AI-enabled genomics, I can actually give you prescription medicines which is customized to your requirement. If I have to give actually radiation for a cancer patient, I don't have to radiate the whole body, just a small nanometer, right? I have nano machines that can pass into your body and actually go and repair the cell as well as the neural networks with it. So I can spot diseases, I can have possible, so I have digital twins. That means you are able to actually simulate it and you can see outside the human how this will behave and then bring it in. Right? 5G can actually support organization and transmission of files because you're having a patient with you. Sitting here, can I do a robotic process automation 100 miles away? Yes. So I need to have information, so 5G, 6G transfers. And of course, AI neural network can improve healthcare biometrics. Now, if you are born with Parkinsonism, Alzheimer's, I can actually remove this defective gene even before the child is born. We have designer babies that are coming in. Much of it is quite illegal. Regulatory processes have to come in, but the possibilities are there. Look at this. All of you have Alexa at your home. So again, this is an example of an AI-driven product. I'm going to speed it up. I have got types of AI. I have machine translation as Google Translate. I have Google Waymo, Sophia and Abo, and I have Apple Siri or OK Google. Many of you have this. If you don't, I need it in your curriculum. You need to open this out and see how it works, okay? How does machine learning work? So I have supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforced learning. Teachers do this for you on a daily basis, but now this is happening in machines. So basically, I give it a lot of past data, and then I say, this is the new, from the past data, the machine is able to learn and gives me what is the predictive outcome. I have supervised learning. What I've done is I've labeled the data. So I've got lots of types of dogs here, easy to understand. I do not know what this dog, which category it belongs to, right? I feed data as an algorithm. The data gets processed and I have a training model because what's the processing? Structure it and say, I want it from age, from size, to color, to whether it is an Indian breed or an international breed. I fill in the algorithms. I give it some input data to train. And then the machine says, yeah, this is a dog, not a cat. You wouldn't believe trillions and trillions of data bytes like this have been done, wherein which for over 17 to 18 years data has been fed, and today you have ChatGPT, OpenAI, DeepSeek, all's coming. But now it's going to exponentially grow. The data is increasing every month almost 2x. Having said this, unsupervised data, I have buses, I have cars, I have all sorts of vans, etc. Unsupervised learning is when the machine is able to actually train itself and give you the information, right? Now, if I go to reinforcement learning, I will give that, I have trained the machine to understand geometrical figures. Now I'm training the machine to see the difference between a triangle and a square. People, all of this you are using like this. Before, there was a guru who knew some information. Then you had a book, so you were able to read the book. Then you had libraries where everything was there. Then you had the internet where information is available. Now, with AI and quantum, what will you do with the information? Because it's analyzing it, solving your problem, it's giving you a solution. It's also saying if you apply it in this predictive vertical, this is how it's going to behave. So question yourself is where is your level of intelligence much more than that of a machine? So you need to have outcomes in your educational program that needs to critically think, design solutions, problem solve, annotate, and then get back, right? So I'm going to take you, if you take the machine learning process, now I hope many of you who are engineers, but much so non-engineers also to know this. Please, cybersecurity, 70% of my employees are non-engineers. You have a critical ability and a creative ability which is very important for you to be able to think differently and out of the box. No offense to engineers, but then there is a siloed bite of information. I need you to come out. Having said this, machine learning applications, now, where all? I want it in sales, I want a CRM process, fraud analysis, product recommendation, stock price that I'm looking at investment banking. Now, many of you need to have these case studies and use cases as a part of your curriculum. There is no silo as civil engineering, chemical, mechanical, BSc, BCom. It's all intercombined. So what is deep learning? It's basically machine learning algorithms that usually require structured data. And then I will use neural networks. I have a simple neural network. Before, there are countries where I don't have doctors. So I have lots of eye problems and different types of eyes. The neural network, it is fed into it, looks at the diseased eye and the good eye and says, this is good, this is not good. So what's the role of a doctor now? How much is it that the doctor basically needs AI? He needs cloud computing. He needs the data analytics. Then he's able to make this decision. Then with this decision, he can actually have a robotic arm, precision, and schedule the operation and do it successfully. So I'm not going too much in this because you must be learning this, because when you do deep learning work, and I want all of you to get into this processes, whether you're graduates, please, you cannot understand, we are throwing people out of work. People who are 15 years, 20 years into the system, if they don't learn, we have no place. So people who don't know anything, if you come into the system, we have no place for you. But as a country, as an organization, it is our right and information to tell you, and we will work very closely with faculty and institutions to rechange ourselves. Just like businesses reinvented themselves, you need to do so. So how does deep learning work is with weighted sums. I'm not going to take too much time here because I have other areas to work, right? So deep learning applications, cancer, okay? I have chatbots, music generation, image coloring. You all have heard about deepfake? Yes? Yes, you know about DALL-E? So what makes you think in the legal process outsourcing that somebody who's giving evidence of a murder is really saying so? How much of deepfake did you know? Because I can make the face, make changes, everything. So there's a difference between information and disinformation. So having said this, what the idea for us was empower you, enable, and engage you in this process. So basically for faculty, I need to re-engineer the talent supply as a cross-functional requirement. That is, no engineering or non-engineering stream will talk only about its own area of science. You need to have an exposure. So we'll work with the Telangana Government of Higher Education to basically say what's going to be the new skill sets. So if I'm going to say what are the hot topics for jobs, because you as students might like. So generative AI is one of the highest income earners today. I have software development, but this is also for non-engineering. I have data analysis, user experience, web development, account management, etc. But all of this comes to complex problem solving. So this is mainly for faculty, but it's good for you to know. How many of you have done recently exams? Most of you just done your exams, yes? How much of the paper was asking you explain, discuss, what is? 85% of your paper? You have learned the old exam papers and you're able to write the paper? Yes or no? Hands up. Right? You have to be honest with yourself. There's no other time. Why do I need to know what AI is? What is deep learning? What is your civil engineering product? What this algorithm? What is Java? I only want to know what you can do with it. I have a problem in a state. All the sewage comes out of I've been telling sir also, sewage comes out every time in all the areas, and I have people driving into the sewage, dying out of suffocation. How do I elevate that? I have got tons and tons of rubbish, which is being biological rubbish. Then I have dry rubbish, which is there. What can I do with it? How do I clean up the city? Because it creates disease. So how can I use cloud computing, AI, nanosensors to basically elevate the sewage problem? How do I rework the rubbish distribution and recycling of it to improve? Do you know that rubbish and clearing in a city is 500 crores per month? There are businesses around you. You need to see the application. And most of the time, we are going to either have AI enablement. So what we are asking faculties and mostly students, you have to know, is we are saying problems will be given to you. You have to analyze it, evaluate, and creatively provide a solution. So there's no right or wrong answer. I want to understand how you logically think about it. How elegant is it? What is the efficiency and the return on investment? So this is a new type of question paper that will come to you, because I want to know how you problem solve. So having said this, look at this. We tried it in Tamil Nadu, because rather than say it, I want to test it out. So we had 75,000 students try it out. What we did was a hackathon. How many of you are aware for hackathon? Yes, many of you will try it. We are going to make this a formal mode of evaluation. Because at the workplace, we don't work as individuals, we work as group. So in a group, I want you to solve a problem. And that's problem. For that, I will ask you to code on the platform, engineering as well as non-engineering, please. So you need to know how to actually code. Learn basics. So when you do that, you will basically say, design thinking, how much marks I will give, innovation and problem solving, requirements of analysis, critical thinking, project management, and for soft skills, I put 30%, right? So I'll not delve too much on this, but this is the feedback I got from students. Out of 75,000 students, by the time they finished their final year, 55,000 students had got jobs. Because this is what the industry is looking for. So rather than sitting and writing an exam paper, explain, discuss, we will only give you one question to problem solve in a group. I'll give you every sort of browser you want, every textbook you want. You can even have a helpline. We don't care. But can you solve the problem? How innovatively are you thinking of the problem, right? So focus on empathy maps, use cases. So we're going to look to redesigning your program. So this was the process on how we did it, how the university, the government, the state skills mission, all of them got together to actually make this happen. And now it is in the policy document. So these were the course highlights and outcomes. So upskilling was there for all. For 75,000 students, we trained 3,500 faculties. They were told how to evaluate. It's not easy to evaluate a paper like that. But that is what we are looking at. Then when there is a problem in the future of work, you will actually be able to solve because you have learned about it. Now the biggest point is, this is specifically for faculties. Many of your outcomes, ma'am, ladies and gentlemen, is on lower ordering, but learning outcomes. We're not interested whether the candidate has learned. I want to know what the candidate can perform. So performance outcome is on a competency. It's like saying, you want to make a recipe for Rasgulla. What is your favorite food? I don't know, but I'm just saying. I have the recipe. You are being asked in your exam paper, write the recipe. How do I care what you write? Can you make it? How does it taste? How many people are buying it? What is the return on investment that you will actually have on that? So basically, if you know the recipe, you will know how the product is to be sold, what is your differentiator with your competitor, how you can actually make it a business enterprise, how you can sell it so that there is revenue for the state as well as for yourself. So this is the thought process that we are looking at. So you need to have in your educational regular programs, healthcare and medicine, electronics and IT, energy, environment, material science, agriculture, food. Each of this, we can do a deep dive with you. So basically, I'm saying regulations for all of this is already in place, because I like to keep this open for a few questions from your side. So just to basically summarize, I say you need to embrace this. And do I have a solution for you? Because by the time your faculty gets to know it and then you will get to learn it, what can you? So the Ministry of IT and NASSCOM has joined hands. We have launched a platform which is called Future Skills Prime. Now this Future Skills Prime has all the technologies and fundamentals, basics, intermediate and advanced from member companies. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. Please go there. The government is paying for the platform. You don't have to join to pay. But colleges, universities, state governments are basically making this a part of their learning. So all universities saying, let's do a 3-credit program. In Anna University, experiential project-based learning became a 3-credit 1-semester program. It's called a compulsory elective. That means you cannot get out of it. But why is it called an elective? If you fail, you can do some other elective. So all these processes are put. It's there for you to learn and take it. So the whole country approach is that we share this information. It is not just to be alarming, but we need policy directive, industry-academia interface, curriculum integration, and showcase learner success. So with this, I would just basically say, what I've spoken to you is now. I'll just give you a glimpse of what's going to happen in the next 50 years. By 2035, we'll not have any fossil fuels, no petrol, no diesel, nothing. So how are you going to run and transportation? What is your solution? What is your design thinking and creative thinking capability? What is going to be the alternate energy? What is the world that you are going to live in? By 2040, massive climate change, there'll be a depletion of water resources. So what is the type of food that you're going to create, which is so dependent on water? No research has gone in. How is humans? So, but all of these are topics in international universities. These need to be, because you have to be a front runner. And now can you actually do the predictive analysis? Yes, you have AI, generative AI. You can actually feed the data and find out how you can solve it, and therefore have solutions for it. So we are looking at alternate food resources, right? By 2040, 45, in between the two, as I've said, AI becomes a singularity. That means all the information and all the computers, all human conscious is in systems. So how is it that we as humans can be relevant? We're going by 2050 look for a global cashless economy. So the banking system has totally changed. Crypto might be there. We have about 11 billion humans, new energy sources, and we're looking at a global workforce. So today we are saying, can we restructure ourselves to be the floating global workforce of the future? So with this, I'll stop, ladies and gentlemen. So I would basically say, open to questions from any of you. Thank you so much. But the thing is, we are in an alarming situation. And from India to take supremacy, we don't have our own cloud. All our defense, all your banking systems are on international cloud. You have AWS, you have Google, you have Microsoft Cloud. Where is our own? So if India has to rule, we basically have to build our own redesign. That's why I called data supremacy, sovereignty. And then we have to have digital sovereignty. That means we need to own what we do. For that, we need you as youngsters to think differently. Because we have lived in a world which is quite different, but the change was slow. You're going to live in a world where change is fast, and you like it, right? You had calculators, you had, banking systems, etc. Now everything is in your cell phone. I don't have a calculator. I have a wristwatch which also behaves like a cell phone, right? It is also a calculator. Next level, I'm going to embed it into my system. Then I'll be able to embed information to the processes. So you're going to live in a world which is highly digital. So what do you want to do? Any thoughts from your side? Just a few questions. Yes, sir. Somebody can give sir a...
Hello.
Ma'am, my name is Umapati. I'm an IPS officer with 43 years of service.
Awesome, sir.
Having investigated several cases. So I would like to ask you,
yes, sir.
Your presentation is really one of the best presentations I've been sitting through, and really lovely. We must all clap to the glory, because it's one of the best presentations. And I wish that you had 2 hours time to explain each slide, because these slides require a lot of, because brain is not so very absorbing.
Correct, sir. Correct, sir.
We have 86 billion neurons, but neurons connectivity is slow. So neurons connected slow because of the cell phone also, 5G also. 5G also will be affecting their
Yes.
frequencies.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm asking you, madam.
Yes, sir.
In spite of all this, data sovereignty, you said yes, we must have our own. Like Google, we should also India should have our own. But we have such brilliant generations
Yes.
throughout the world. Either you call it NASA, ISRO, everything is Indian engineers.
Yes.
We have BMW, whatever you say about it. Why is it that we are not able to take it forward? The NTRO is there, which is supposed to have technical organization, and we have got the biggest of the brains and a very good budget. Why we are not able to have our own data sovereignty, means our own systems like Google and things like
Yeah.
that. Second one is that how do we now, there is a lot of misinformation saying that once the artificial intelligence in a full bloom it comes, it will remove a lot of the jobs. People will face the job loss. These are the two questions.
Yes.
What are the impediments? Does not the government of India, Minister for IT, does he not he know that we should have our own data process like China? For example, China, you can't, certain things are not allowed in China. And they're very supreme in their own technology.
Yes.
So we are yet to come to the Chinese level of supremacy, maybe about the technical intelligence. In addition to that, this digital autonomy and the digital sovereignty and also the human job loss. These are the two questions which you may kindly explain.
Sir, thank you for those very thought-provoking questions. It's basically something very critical. And I appreciate the thought that you put in. Now, I'll take the job losses. Now, for even achieving this AI, it costs billions of dollars to input data. It's taken huge amount of years. Say, for example, if I have a quantum superpositioning, right? Because I talked of quantum computing, wherein which trillions of years of computation can be done in a few seconds. But the superpositioning, which is in qubits with regards to AI, which is they're only on or off. AI only talks of AI on or off. But in quantum, you can have multiple states at the same time. So that means trillions of computations, which an AI engine will do, a quantum computer will do it in a few seconds. Having said this, it costs a huge amount of money to make this happen. 17 years of data was put together to make one layer of microns to be able to say, if I have a piece of sound, it will actually stabilize the quantum superpositioning process. So absorbing this, work has gone on internationally for a large number of years. It is not about intelligence, sir. 60% of, the Silicon Valley is filled with Indians. Out of which, I would say very easily, 45% is from Hyderabad, Telangana. So we are very sure. It's only that you must have an ecosystem here. If I'm able to replicate the ecosystem, then I'm able to find that invite these people back, ease of business is there, and they will be able to start. So we are doing a program now with under NEGD, sir, wherein which we are trying to educate IS officers as to the impact and usability of emerging tech. So basically, job losses will happen, but like in all the other, revolutions that we had, we'll be able to find other solutions. So I need to have a human which has got more intelligence. Because if I have something which is automotive, there's a lot of energy going into cutting the food and in the fields, etc. Now I have tractors, now I have plows. It eased up the human effort. Like that, you having to actually feed data in, look for computation, the turnaround time. I need a new generation of students who are intelligent. The problem is not at the level of intelligence. It's the problem is, can I give you an ecosystem? Can I give you the bandwidth, the devices? And then governance can come into play where you say, okay, by this time, I'm going to actually have a cloud computing process. NMICT, sir, had about 4,500 crores put together, and they were supposed to build a cloud in somewhere 10, 15 years ago. They have something called Badal, which was done by IIT Kharagpur. It's still sitting there. So somebody in the governance process has to understand the importance and say, I will prioritize it. Because all our cyber security, banking details, defense details are on international clouds. If we give the direction to students and schools and their college program, I'm sure it will happen. So we have the IIIT structure for which I even wrote the, DPR, sir. And other programs are there. So if you can encourage them, I'm sure this will happen. So one of the things we have been talking to Professor in ASCI as well as in Telangana state government, I want a test bed. Can Hyderabad and the Telangana government, all of the faculty and colleges, at least take 40% of our question papers and increase it to the higher order? Because it's easy said, but it's pretty difficult to change. Because once I do that, then the teaching methodology will change. I don't need to have teachers talk to me about what is known information. I'll say, you go read it. In the class, it's a flipped classroom. I only have problem solving.
Yes, ma'am,
Right.
this is exactly the problem. The whole examination system, the knowledge, understanding and application levels, they are supposed to have it. As you said, if you go through the last 2 years question paper or 3 years question paper, you will pass. But in UPSC, does UPSC produce one single paper? Show me one paper of history, geography, civics, economics, politics. Is there any question that is repeated? Not repeated. Therefore, the system is that because I'm a BSc Agriculture Education,
Yes, sir.
BSc Education from Regional College of Education,
Yes, sir.
and Professor S.L. Bairappa was my teacher, who is now on the NCRT, and then Dr. U.R. Ananthamurthy, the famous English professor, he was also my professor.
Yes.
Unless we have we should have only 30% knowledge type. The remaining 40% understanding and something like 30% application level. If you give a knowledge-based questions, the things will not improve in this country. If you give understanding is more, application more, knowledge less, then they'll start thinking.
Yes, sir.
Then
You're
the question
very correct in
as
your-
you said, the faculty also should go into that kind of
Yes.
mold, application mold. It's
Absolutely.
not like you want to learn swimming through correspondence course. No, you can't. You will drown the minute you get into water. Many things, what is happening in our country is they are trying to teach swimming through correspondence course. That's the problem, man. Thank you, man.
Thank you. So one of the things is, that's why I'm saying, once we change the outcomes, if I want to evaluate performance, competency, can I'm competent to do something, then it's quite different from knowing the recipe book, right? And that served the purpose when knowledge was very limited. Now you are exposed to so many. You want to go and write. I've got students who are doing PhD papers by doing it through ChatGPT. So my faculty has to know, is this a ChatGPT one, or this fellow has really got the ambition to do this PhD? And I'm saying all faculty, every one of them, 10 to 20% of their work output must be research oriented, and this research oriented must lead to IP, and that must lead to generation. Therefore, a university system must have a hub and spoke model with industry. This is the China model also. So in small organizations, sir, there was a college in Salem, if I remember, sir, because you just triggered the memory. There it's a textile industry hub in Salem. So the faculty there is actually having their chemical and the civil and the mechanical groups are actually providing spare parts from ISRO. Students are running this. Students have actually, many of you know what is banana leaf, right? A banana plant. Yes, you have the raw banana you can eat, and if you have the century, if you cut it, there is a whitish section which is the piston type. Do you know it's such a strong adhesive that it can actually replace the chemical dyes which actually stick the color to your clothes? Students have prepared this, and the dyeing industry has changed. So I'm saying is, faculty now need to think innovation, need to think differently. Now, the relevance of the faculty itself, you will go to ChatGPT. So faculty has to do this. We are here to support because we need to restructure and re-engineer, because if I have the outcomes are different, it will actually push the approach method. So I'm very much with sir and hope to have continuous support, so that unless we join hands, it cannot happen. But there's no question of intelligence or capability. It is just the question of opportunity and requirement. But if I don't inform you of what the future is, you will come up into sharp surprises. And many students have gone into depression, say, I am a first student, I'm not getting a job. It's not about you. Everything has changed around you. So the relevance of your educational program is now what is being questioned. You've had a wonderful 70 years in India and research, but the Gurukul system and now is so different. How many of you go to the markets to actually buy things? How many of you go online to purchase? Yes or no? There is one story. There is a person who is actually in coma. He got up because his cell phone began ringing. You're so embedded with your cell phone. If it is, you will find that you're palpitating because you've misplaced your cell phone. It's so close to you. So you're actually looking for wearable devices now. And then subsequently, as Elon Musk said, can I embed a chip into your system so it increases your intelligence? I'm sure many people might take it on. We don't know. So what I'm saying is we are living in a different world. Now I'm looking at my glasses, right? But if I have Google glasses on and I have different languages, Chinese, history, I don't need to learn a language. It will translate in front of me real time. So you need to know what is available. You need to innovate to continue to keep our supremacy so that we are a sustainable species. So thank you, sir. Yes, sir, please.
Ma'am, first of all, this is Krishnamurthy.
Yes, sir.
I am principal of Jay Prakash Narayan.
Yes, sir.
Sanjay ma'am, you have enlightened a lot, and I am sure many of our students will be in shock to know where they are and what they have to be. And unfortunately, this is the same thing with even the faculty too. And when it is coming to that of you are just covering from the course outcomes to the learning outcomes and the Bloom's taxonomy, the question paper and the answer sheet, and after all these things, how best you analyze that the requirement of
Having pitched in the international fora, because we test out whatever we say before we come and actually talk to you all. So what I'm looking here for is with Professor Balkishteya and people like Sir here from the IIS, etc., and all the other dignitaries, Ravi Sir, we need a test bed. We are willing to time, I'm personally willing to put time. We need to take engineering, non-engineering programs and power, put a small group of people who are basically, it's now time to actually revise your curriculum. So when you revise your curriculum, let's put a game and say, let's take 40% of every curriculum, BSc, BCom, BB8, engineering, anything. Let us bring in emerging tech into it, into the relevance. Now, do I have ready courses? I have ready courses. You yourself can have courses. We can have international programs wherein which their courses can come in so that you are on a global platform. Let's do this, sir. In the parallel, when you look at, I'll help and work with you all, promises made to actually sit down and redesign the exam paper. Look at the old paper, you will see 85 to 90% is on lower order thinking. About 10% is higher order. Now, if I have to flip this out, you will get worried. Students will basically also be very worried. So let's take and say year 1, year 2, year 3. If you have semesters, let's say let's flip around, make it a 70-30, then 60-40, and then we'll make it a 70. That means 70% will be higher order and 30%. So let's plan in the next 2 years, sir, that we'll make this work. Faculty also have the time to renovate because their role as a teacher has changed to become a mentor and a facilitator. Students now have to go online to learn. So you'd also find very difficult when you have to constantly look at devices all the time. But then that's going to be, because that's how we work. Many of you are writing pen and paper exams. It's been years since I've written a pen and paper. It's always been on the system. So can you submit your homework online? Can you submit your group in group? Can you evaluate it? Because yesterday there was a session where they said, how do I evaluate a candidate? So we are saying, teachers only have 40% of evaluation. Students have 60% evaluation because I break you up into groups of 4. Each one of you is solving a problem differently. You are competing. You have to evaluate your peers. Then I will video the whole thing and put it up into the international fora to have other peers like you evaluate you, so to see your global relevance. Because the future of work is you don't find work only in India. You are supposed to be the talent hub for the world. So unless your skill certificates are on par with the rest of the world, your competency is on par, there is no future. Therefore, when we are a globalized world, you need to have global standards. And therefore, that is the exercise. Very, very happy to start. These are big practices. Time is on us. So happy to help and support, sir.